Have you ever imagined a 68-year-old grandmother newly retired could change an entire family in just 14 days? My name is Lauren Smith. I am from Columbus, Ohio. I spent 35 years teaching. I devoted my whole life to my son. And then I was treated like an unpaid servant by my daughter-in-law until one fateful phone call. You do nothing anyway. Just watch the kids. I smiled. I hung up the phone, and I decided to teach her a lesson she would never forget. When she came back, my 3 grandchildren stood quietly behind me, and the silence that followed changed everything. This is my true story about love, about truth, and about the strength of a grandmother who never gives up. I had officially been retired for 2 days, the first 2 days in 46 years of continuous work. Since I was 22 years old when I first stepped into a classroom at Lincoln Elementary School in Columbus, Ohio, I sat in my small living room. Soft early autumn sunlight came through the window, spreading across the coffee table. On it lay a stack of travel brochures I had collected for years but never dared to open. Yellowstone with its magical hot springs, the Grand Canyon glowing red under the sunset, or a road trip along the Pacific Coast Highway. Dreams I once believed would always remain dreams. Now, at 68, I told myself, Lauren Smith, you finally have time for yourself. The phone vibrated on the table. The name Vanessa Carter appeared on the screen. I let out a quiet sigh. Every time my daughter-in-law called, it was rarely to ask about my health or to share something pleasant. I answered, Lauren. Vanessa's voice came instantly. Cold, no greeting. I have a big opportunity in Miami, a multi-level marketing conference. This time it will change everything. The kids cannot miss 2 weeks of school, so I will send them to you. I will be gone for 2 weeks. I stayed silent for a second. I tried to keep my voice calm. Vanessa, I just retired. I have my own plans. She cut me off. Her voice rose slightly as if I had said something unreasonable. Plans? You just retired. You have nothing to do now, right? Staying home and watching the kids is perfect. You are their grandmother anyway, Michael already agreed. I knew my son Ethan very well. He had not agreed to this. He worked 14 hours a day at an auto assembly plant to support his family, to keep up with Vanessa's endless opportunities, those multi-level marketing conferences, those so-called life-changing courses. They always ended the same way, with piles of credit card debt. I tried again. I'm not sure I can... Oh, please stop pretending. Vanessa laughed, a sharp, cutting laugh that made my skin crawl. You have all the time in the world now. I will bring Jackson, Emma, and Tyler tomorrow morning at 7. Do not feed them junk food like last time. And do not spoil them even more. The last time I saw my grandchildren was 6 months ago, on Christmas, and it lasted only 2 hours. Because, according to Vanessa, the children had to visit their other grandparents, the important ones, the ones who could provide for them. Before I could respond, she hung up. A few seconds later, a message appeared on the screen. If you refuse, I will file a report with Child Protective Services in Ohio. I will say you are not mentally fit to see the kids. I can prove it. Do not test me, Lauren. I stared at the words. Child Protective Services. A clear and direct threat. My heart pounded, but not because of fear. Something inside me had just awakened, something that 35 years of teaching had shaped. A firm stand against injustice. I placed the phone down on the table. The living room suddenly fell into a deafening silence. No sound of traffic outside, no birds, only the sound of my own heartbeat. In that moment, I knew I had made the most important decision of my 68 years of life. I would teach Vanessa a lesson she would never forget. Not with words, not with arguments, but with what I had learned from thousands of children and hundreds of parents. The deepest lessons are never taught with words. They are taught through actions, through truth, and through unwavering love. And I knew that when Vanessa returned after 2 weeks, the 3 children would no longer stand before her as controlled little puppets. They would stand behind me. And the silence that followed, that heavy, deafening silence, it would mark the end of a 35-year story. The story of a grandmother who had sacrificed her whole life and who at last had risen to take back what was hers. I smiled, for the first time that day, a real smile, not one of quiet endurance, but the smile of someone ready to fight. Because in this country we do not beg for respect, we earn it, and when someone tries to take it away, it is time to claim it back, by every legal means, with everything we have. And Vanessa Carter was about to learn that lesson in the hardest way possible. I sat there in the small living room where I had lived for more than 4 decades. My hand still held the phone warm from the call with Vanessa. The autumn afternoon sunlight of Ohio filtered through the curtains. It highlighted the retirement certificate on the wall. It read, Lauren Smith, 35 years of service to Lincoln Elementary Education. 35 years. It sounded like a long time. Yet when I looked back, it felt strangely short. I had spent my entire life teaching thousands of children, difficult children, hurt children, children no one believed could change. I had faced aggressive parents, tense meetings, sleepless nights grading papers and worrying about my students. I had never imagined that one day I would have to use all those lessons to protect my own family. But perhaps it had all begun long ago, back when I was a young teacher full of passion, and my life was turned upside down in a single cold morning in October. Richard, my husband, the man I loved with all my heart. He left home one morning in 1973 for a business trip. He drove his old car onto Interstate 70 heading west. A sudden snowstorm struck. 50 cars crashed in a chain collision in the blinding snow. 23 people did not survive. Richard was the 24th. He lived for 3 days in the hospital, just long enough to hold my hand and whisper, "Take care of Ethan. Make him a good man, Lauren." When he was gone, I had $100 in my account, a 3-year-old boy with brown eyes just like his father, and a teaching degree I had worked so hard to earn. I had no time to cry. I had to live. I taught at a public school in the morning, tutored at home in the afternoon. Ethan always ate before I did. If there was money for a new pair of shoes, they were his. If there was just enough money for a birthday toy, I would pretend I was not hungry that night. I remember one Christmas when Ethan was 8. He dreamed of a bright red bicycle he had seen in a store. I saved every coin for 6 months. On the night of December 24, after he had fallen asleep, I realized the refrigerator was empty. There was nothing for a Christmas meal. I took off the only necklace I had left, a gift from my grandmother. I sold it for $50. With that money, I bought a small turkey, some potatoes, and a few vegetables. Ethan woke up the next morning. He saw the bicycle under the tree and shouted with joy. He never knew what I had eaten the night before. To Ethan, his mother was unstoppable. His mother could do anything. And I had to protect that belief inside him. Those years were harsh. I worked double shifts, sold baked goods at the church fair every Sunday. My hands were wrinkled and stained, my joints swollen from kneading dough at 4 in the morning, but it was all worth it when Ethan was accepted into Ohio State University, majoring in industrial engineering. The day he wore his graduation gown, I stood in the back row. I cried with pride. The son of Mrs. Smith, a widow, a boy who grew up without a father. He was about to become an engineer. I had fulfilled Richard's wish. But life never lets us rest for long. In Ethan's 3rd year at university, he brought home a girl named Vanessa. She wore a soft pink dress, a perfect smile, smooth black hair. She hugged me tightly and said, "Mrs. Smith, I admire you so much. You raised such a wonderful son on your own. You are my hero." How could I not be moved? For 20 years, I had not received a sincere hug from anyone except my son. And suddenly, a beautiful young woman called me her hero. I walked straight into a trap without knowing it. Their early years of marriage were quite good. Vanessa often visited. She helped me cook. She talked about her modest family in West Virginia. Her father was a coal miner. Her mother was a waitress. "I understand you," she said. "We both know what hardship is." I believed her. I wanted to believe her, because I saw Ethan happy. But Margaret Thompson, my closest friend from my teaching days, warned me from the very beginning. Margaret and I often had coffee at a small shop near the school every weekend. One day, after meeting Vanessa for the first time, Margaret looked at me and spoke in a low voice. "Lauren, that girl looks at Ethan the way someone looks at an ATM. She does not love your son. She loves what your son can provide." I laughed it off. Margaret, my son is grown. He knows how to choose his partner. Margaret only shook her head. He is too kind, Lauren. Too kind to see what is happening right in front of him. I did not listen. I did not want to listen. Because I wanted so badly for Ethan to have a complete family, something I could not give him after Richard was gone. And then slowly, like a slow drip of poison, everything changed. Vanessa began with gentle remarks. It is a pity Ethan did not have a father as a role model. If you had saved better, Ethan could have attended a private school. Your baking is too simple. Mine is better, gourmet style. Each word was a cut, but I swallowed them all. For Ethan. Always for Ethan. Then the grandchildren were born. Jackson first. I knitted a blanket for 9 months and brought it to the hospital. Vanessa looked at it, then set it aside. Thank you, but we already bought everything from Nordstrom. I might donate it. Nordstrom. While I still bought clothes at Goodwill to save for my son's future, she spent Ethan's salary on luxury stores. Then came Emma, then Tyler. With each child, I was pushed further away. Vanessa had endless reasons. The children need routine. You will spoil them. Your house is not safe. Your thinking is outdated. And then came Emma's 5th birthday, the most painful blow. I saved for 3 months to buy the dollhouse she loved. I went to their house with the carefully wrapped gift and my best outfit, but I was stopped at the door. Vanessa smiled sweetly. Oh, Lauren, what a pity. It is only a party for classmates and parents. You understand. We do not want you to feel uncomfortable. Uncomfortable. The grandmother of the birthday girl made others uncomfortable. I saw Ethan in the background, playing with the children. He did not look up. He knew I was there, and he did nothing. I left with the dollhouse in my hands. I cried all the way home. That night, I donated it to an orphanage. At least there it would be appreciated. And now, after all those years of humiliation and contempt, Vanessa called and demanded that I become a free babysitter. As if all the pain she caused could be erased with a snap of her fingers the moment she needed me. I looked out the window. Autumn leaves were falling across the yard. I thought of Richard. I thought of Ethan, the boy I had sacrificed my entire life to raise into a good man. And I thought of my 3 grandchildren, children I rarely saw, yet I still saved every bit of my pension to open savings accounts for them. That was when I realized something. I could not change the past, but I could change the future. And Vanessa Carter was about to learn a lesson she never expected. A lesson I had never taught in 35 years of teaching. But now I would teach it with everything I had. The love of a grandmother, the firmness of a teacher, and the power of truth. I stood up, I poured myself a cup of chamomile tea, and I began to make a plan. Because in this country we do not wait for justice to knock on the door. We stand up and claim it. And I was ready. And then, like a warm breeze that suddenly swept through my lonely years, Ethan brought home a girl named Vanessa. It was a Sunday afternoon in the spring of 2005. Ethan was in his final year at Ohio State University. He called ahead. Mom, I want you to meet someone special. His voice was full of excitement, the kind of excitement I had not heard since he was a child. I prepared a simple dinner, roasted chicken, mashed potatoes, apple pie. Then I stood by the door and waited. When they walked in, I could hardly believe my eyes. Vanessa wore a soft pink dress. Her long black hair fell smoothly over her shoulders. Her smile was bright like the spring sunlight in Ohio. She stepped forward and hugged me tightly, a sincere hug. So sincere that it caught me off guard. Mrs. Smith, she said, her voice sweet, Ethan talks about you a lot. I admire you so much. You raised such a wonderful son all on your own. You are my hero. Hero. That word echoed in my small house like a melody I had long forgotten. For 20 years I had received only quick passing hugs from my son, and now a beautiful young woman called me a hero. My heart softened completely. I invited them to the table. I smiled more than usual. And for the first time in a long time, my house no longer felt cold. In the months that followed, Vanessa often visited. She helped me cook. She washed the dishes. She even sat and listened as I told stories about my years of teaching. She spoke about her family in a small town in West Virginia. Her father was a coal miner. Her mother was a waitress in a roadside diner. "I understand you," she said, her eyes shining. "We both know what hardship feels like, right?" I nodded. My heart was full of sympathy. I wanted to believe that Ethan had found someone who truly understood him. Someone who understood the quiet sacrifices I had made for him. Their wedding took place the year Ethan graduated. It was a simple ceremony at a local church, but Vanessa cried a great deal as they exchanged rings. I used half of my retirement savings to cover part of the cost. The wedding dress, the flowers, a small reception after the ceremony. I told myself, this is an investment in my son's happiness. When Vanessa hugged me and whispered, "Thank you. You are wonderful," I believed everything would be all right. But life is not always what it seems on the surface. In the early years of their marriage, things were still fine. Vanessa still visited. She still laughed and talked cheerfully. But slowly, like drops of water wearing down stone, her remarks began to appear. Gentle, subtle, but sharp as knives. One day I brought a plate of homemade pecan cookies to their house. Vanessa looked at the plate and smiled. "Oh, Lauren, it is a pity Ethan did not have a father as a role model. You can tell he lacks a bit of ambition. If you had saved better, perhaps he could have attended a private school instead of a state school." She said it lightly, as if it were just a passing thought. I swallowed the sting inside me. For Ethan. Always for Ethan. Another time she looked at my wrinkled flour-stained hands and said, "Your baking is too simple. Mine is better. Gourmet style. No offense." I forced a smile. I said I preferred my mother's traditional way, but inside I knew. Those words were not accidental. They were tiny needles, one by one, making me feel smaller inside my own family. I endured it. I told myself she was only trying to establish her place, that one day she would change when she saw how much I loved the children. I did not want conflict. I was afraid that if I spoke up, Ethan would have to choose between his mother and his wife, and I did not want my son to make that choice. But Margaret Thompson, my closest friend, did not stay silent. One afternoon, as we sat drinking coffee at our usual cafe near the school, Margaret looked straight into my eyes and said, "Lauren, that girl does not love Ethan. She loves what Ethan can give her. Stability, money, an easy life she did not build herself. I see the way she looks at him. Like he is a walking ATM. Do not let your love blind you." I laughed it off, but the smile did not reach my eyes. "Margaret, my son is grown. He knows how to choose his partner." Margaret only shook her head. Her voice turned low. "He is too kind, Lauren. Too kind to see what is right in front of him. And you are the same. You have sacrificed your whole life for him. Do not let him sacrifice his whole life for someone who does not deserve it." Her words were like a stone thrown into the still lake inside me. They created ripples, but I tried to calm them. I did not want to believe. I was afraid to believe, because if I did, I would have to face the truth. That my son, the child I had given my entire life to raise, was in an unhealthy relationship. Then the grandchildren were born. Jackson first. I knitted a blanket for 9 months and brought it to the hospital with all the love of a grandmother. Vanessa looked at it, then set it aside. "Thank you, but we already bought everything from Nordstrom. This, I might donate it." I forced a smile, but my heart ached. Then came Emma, then Tyler. With each child, I was pushed further away. Vanessa had endless reasons to keep me at a distance. "The children need routine. You will spoil them. Your house is not safe for kids. Your thinking is outdated." And I, who had taught thousands of children how to love and grow, became outdated in my own family. I endured. I stayed silent. I told myself that one day Vanessa would change, that Ethan would realize the truth, that the children would grow closer to me. But deep inside, I knew Margaret was right. And I knew that if I continued to stay silent, I would lose everything. Not just my grandchildren, but my son as well. Then came that fateful call. Vanessa demanded that I become a free babysitter. And she added a threat involving Child Protective Services. That was the final drop. I looked out the window. Autumn leaves were falling. I thought of Richard. I thought of Ethan, the boy I had sacrificed my entire life to raise into a good man. And I thought of my 3 grandchildren. Children I rarely saw, yet I still saved every bit of my pension to open savings accounts for them. I stood up. I was no longer a woman who endured in silence. I am Lauren Smith, a mother, a grandmother, a teacher who has spent her entire life teaching lessons of kindness, resilience, and justice. And now I will teach the most important lesson, not in a classroom, but in this very home. A lesson for Vanessa Carter. Never underestimate the strength of a grandmother who has waited too long to stand up. I began to make a plan, and this time I would not stay silent. But before I could begin to act, old memories rushed back like a wave of icy water. They pulled me back to the years around 2010, the time when Vanessa began to build an invisible wall between me and the children. One brick at a time, one sweet word at a time. When Jackson was born, I thought everything would be better. I was the first grandmother to arrive at the hospital. I carried the wool blanket I had knitted over 9 months. Every stitch held my hope and my love. Vanessa looked at the blanket. She smiled politely, then set it aside. Thank you, but we already bought everything from Nordstrom. I might donate it. I still smiled. I still said, that is fine. But from that day on, Vanessa began to use routine as an excuse, a daily schedule, a structure, to keep me from seeing my grandson often. You understand, Lauren? Young children need discipline. If you visit too much, you will spoil him. I swallowed the pain. For Ethan. Always for Ethan. Then Emma was born. I saved 3 months of my pension to buy a large dollhouse. She had loved it every time we passed the mall. I wrapped the gift carefully. I wore my best outfit. And I drove to their house with a heart full of hope. The backyard party was full of laughter. An inflatable castle, a clown, a princess performing for the children. But when I reached the door, Vanessa stopped me. Her voice was still sweet. Oh, Lauren, what a pity. This is only for classmates and parents. You understand, we do not want you to feel out of place among people who are different. I stood frozen on the doorstep. Over Vanessa's shoulder, I saw Ethan playing with the children in the backyard. He knew I was there. He saw me, but he did not look up. Not a word, not a gesture. I returned home with the dollhouse still wrapped in my hands. Tears fell the entire way. That night I brought it to an orphanage and left it there. At least there some child would hold it close and love it. Then came Tyler. When he was born, Vanessa did not even try to pretend anymore. She looked at me through the phone screen and spoke directly. You are old, Lauren. Your thinking is outdated. Children today need early stimulation, English classes, swimming, robot programming, not peanut butter sandwiches and old fairy tales like the ones you tell. Every word she spoke cut into my heart, but I remained silent. I still smiled. I still mailed birthday gifts. And I still hoped that one day my grandchildren would come to me on their own. Then one evening in 2022, I heard a conversation I was not meant to hear. Vanessa was speaking to Ethan in the kitchen. Her voice was soft but calculated. Darling, your mother's house is worth at least $200,000. If we sell it and invest in this new multi-level marketing project, we could double the money in 6 months. Your mother is old. She does not need such a big house. We can buy her a smaller apartment, more convenient. Ethan was silent for a long time. Then he spoke. His voice was tired but firm. No, Vanessa, that is my mother's house. She spent her whole life keeping it. I cannot do that. Vanessa did not argue loudly. She only sighed and changed the subject. But I knew very well. Ethan had refused, but he never told me. He chose silence to keep the peace. And that silence gave Vanessa more room to continue her control. That night, I sat alone in my living room looking at my retirement certificate on the wall. I realized the harshest truth. My son, the child I had spent my whole life raising into a good man, he was being manipulated. He was no longer the Ethan I knew. He was living in a relationship he did not dare to face. But my 3 grandchildren, Jackson, Emma, Tyler, they could still be saved. They had not been poisoned completely. They were still children. And I, a teacher who had spent 35 years guiding difficult children, would not allow Vanessa to turn them into weapons against their own family. I clenched my hands. For the first time in a long while, I did not feel lonely. I felt strong. I felt ready. Because in this country, we do not wait for justice to arrive on its own. We stand up and claim it, with truth, with love, with everything we have. And I was about to do exactly that. I picked up the phone and dialed Sarah Klein, an old friend who specialized in technology and recording devices. My voice was calm but firm. "Sarah, I need your help. This time I am not only protecting my grandchildren. I am going to save my entire family." That was the moment the real battle began. And then, just a few hours after I set the phone down, it vibrated again. Vanessa's name appeared on the screen. I took a deep breath, then answered, not out of fear, but because I was ready. "Lauren." Her voice came instantly, higher, sharper, as if she was holding back anger. "I just spoke with Michael. He said you agreed. So tomorrow morning at 7, I will bring Jackson, Emma, and Tyler. Do not do anything stupid. And remember, if you refuse, I will call Child Protective Services immediately. I have proof that you are not mentally fit to care for children. You do not want to lose your right to see them, do you?" This was no longer an empty threat. It was clear, direct, spoken with the tone of someone used to giving orders. I stayed silent for a second, not out of fear, but to measure the moment. Then I replied, my voice soft, almost cheerful. "All right, Vanessa, bring them over. I will take care of them." She let out a cold laugh through the phone, the kind that made my skin crawl. "That is more like it, and do not spoil them. They are difficult, but that is because you never knew how to raise Michael properly. If he had a better mother." I ended the call before she could finish, not out of anger, but because I refused to waste another second listening to those poisonous words. I sat down on the sofa. My hand still held the phone tightly. My heart was beating fast, but not from fear. It was the rhythm of someone who had made a decision. This fight was no longer a choice. It was necessary. Vanessa had declared war long ago, through every insulting word, every time she shut me out of my grandchildren's birthdays, every time she used Ethan as a shield. Now it was my turn to respond, not with words, but with action, with truth, with everything I had learned from 35 years of teaching, that a bully only stops when someone stands up to them. I picked up the phone again and dialed Sarah Klein, my closest friend from university, now a retired technology expert who still had a habit of playing with surveillance devices from her days working at a security company. She answered on the second ring. "Lauren, it has been a long time. What is going on? Your voice sounds different." I told her everything, briefly. No hesitation, no embellishment. Sarah listened in silence. Then she sighed. "You know, I have been waiting for this call for a long time. That Vanessa, I saw it from the beginning. What do you need? A recorder hidden in a button, a camera disguised as a smoke detector, or both?" "Both," I said, "and as soon as possible. She is bringing the children tomorrow morning." Sarah gave a soft laugh, the kind of laugh from someone used to dealing with dirty situations. "I will bring them tonight. And Lauren, this time you are not alone. I am here." I ended the call. Then I dialed the next number. Emily Reynolds, a woman I met through a support group for retired teachers. She now worked at Child Protective Services in Ohio. She had once told me about cases where parents used children as weapons. Lauren, Emily answered, her voice warm but professional. "I am at the office. What is happening?" I told her everything, from Vanessa's threat to my plan. Emily was silent for a moment. Then she spoke. "I cannot intervene officially right now because there is no report yet, but I can come to your house as an unannounced visit in the next few days, like a routine check. If there are signs of emotional neglect or manipulation, I will document it and open a case." "Lauren, are you sure? This is your daughter-in-law?" "It will be difficult. I am sure," I said. "Not because I want revenge, but because I want to protect my grandchildren. And Ethan, too." Emily let out a slow breath. "All right. I will come on the 3rd or 4th day, depending on the situation. And Lauren, document everything. Evidence is the only thing that matters in family court in Ohio." I ended the call. It felt like I had just placed the first pieces on a chessboard. But before I could breathe, the phone vibrated again. A message from an unknown number. "Stay out of this, old woman. Vanessa has powerful friends. If you continue, you will lose everything." Not just the children, but this house too. I stared at the screen. My heart beat faster, but not from fear, from anger, a clean, sharp anger, without hesitation. Someone was trying to scare me. Someone was protecting Vanessa, but they did not know one thing. I had already lived through the greatest loss of my life when Richard died. I had survived years of raising a child alone with $100 in my pocket. I had endured humiliation. I had been pushed out of my own grandchildren's lives. They could not scare me anymore. I saved the message, my first piece of evidence. Then I stood up and walked to the cabinet. I took out an old box filled with family photos. Richard smiling brightly beside little Ethan. Me holding Ethan on his graduation day. The 3 grandchildren in the few moments I was allowed to see them. I placed the photos on the table. I looked at each one and whispered, "Richard, my love." I kept my promise. I made Ethan a good man. Now I will protect our grandchildren. And I will not let anyone take this family away from me. I turned off the living room lights, but inside me there was light. Tomorrow morning Vanessa would arrive. She thought she was bringing 3 children to a weak old woman, easy to control. She had no idea. That old woman was ready to fight, and this battle would not end until the truth was revealed, until the children could live in real love, not manipulation. I smiled in the darkness. For the first time in many years, I did not feel alone. I had a plan. I had evidence. And above all, I had the love of a grandmother, the strongest force no one could defeat. Tomorrow, everything would begin. And Vanessa Carter would learn a lesson she never expected. A lesson about the power of truth, about resilience, and about a grandmother who had waited far too long to stand up. I closed my eyes. I took a deep breath. And I whispered, "My dear children, I am coming." The next morning, exactly at 7, not a minute early, not a minute late, the doorbell rang. I had been standing at the door since 6:45, not out of anxiety, but because I wanted to be the one to open it. I wanted Vanessa to see clearly that I was not a weak old woman trembling as I waited. The door opened. Vanessa stood there, sun-tanned from Miami, wearing an expensive white dress, dragging 3 large suitcases behind her. Behind her were Jackson, Emma, and Tyler, 3 children with frowns on their faces, their eyes fixed on the ground or on their phones. No smiles, no goodbye hugs. "I do not have time to talk," Vanessa said immediately, her voice cold. She did not even step across the threshold. "Jackson is allergic to dust. Emma does not eat anything green. Tyler needs an iPad to sleep or he will stay awake all night. Their medicine is in the blue suitcase. I will be back in 2 weeks. Michael is working as usual. Someone has to take care of this family." She looked me up and down, her eyes full of open contempt. "Not everyone is lucky enough to retire with a government pension like you." I smiled, a calm smile I had practiced all night. "Thank you for the reminder, Vanessa. I will take good care of them." She leaned close to my ear, her voice low, meant only for me. "Do not you dare put ideas into their heads. Remember, I decide whether they get to see you again." Then she turned and walked away. No goodbye kiss for the children, no hug, no loving word. Only the sound of her high heels fading down the walkway, then the roar of her SUV engine, and she was gone. The 3 children walked into the house, dragging their feet as if entering a prison. Jackson, 12 years old, eyes locked on his phone. Emma, 10, a permanent look of disdain. Tyler, 7, already looking around for a television. I closed the door. I took a deep breath. This was the beginning. "Hello, children," I said gently. "I am very happy you are here." Jackson looked up first, his voice irritated. "Where is the Wi-Fi? Is the modem broken?" I smiled. "The modem is broken. I have not fixed it yet." "What?" he shouted, as if he had been tortured. Mom, your mother has left Jackson." "Shouting will not bring the internet back." Emma cut in, her tone full of contempt. "I am hungry, but I am not eating your food. Mom said your cooking is terrible. That is why Dad is so thin." Tyler added, "I want YouTube. At home, I watch it all day." I looked at the 3 children raised with money, gifts, and emotional neglect, They did not know limits. They did not understand respect, and they had been taught to look down on me. But I was ready for this moment. "Listen to me," I said, my voice calm but firm. "Your mother asked me to watch you, not to entertain you. In this house there is food in the kitchen, water from the tap, and beds to sleep in. If you want anything more, Wi-Fi, television, iPad, you will have to earn it." "Earn it?" Emma looked offended. "We are children. We do not have to do anything. Everyone contributes," I replied. "That is how I was raised. That is how I raised your father before your mother turned everything upside down. And for these 2 weeks, that is how it will be," Tyler threatened. "I will tell Mom. You are mean." "Go ahead," I said. "And while you are at it, tell her I found her Facebook page very interesting, especially the photos in Puerto Vallarta last month. When she said she was at a conference, the 3 children fell silent. They did not understand everything, but they understood one thing. Their grandmother was no longer easy to bully. The first night was chaos. Jackson slammed his bedroom door until the frame shook. Emma cried for hours, demanding special food. Tyler wet the bed on purpose to punish me. They wanted to break me, the way their mother had tried for years. But I did not respond with anger. I cleaned the floor, I changed the sheets, and I sat beside Tyler until he fell asleep in my arms. For the first time, he let me hold him without struggling. In the middle of the night, around 2 a.m, I heard soft sobbing from Emma's room, not angry, crying, real tears. I stepped inside quietly. Emma sat on her bed, holding a crumpled photograph under the dim night light. "What are you holding, my dear?" she startled. She hid the photo under her pillow. "Nothing. Go away." But I had seen it. It was a photo of me holding her when she was a baby. One of the few times Vanessa had allowed me close before the wall was built. "Do you miss your mother?" I asked, gently sitting at the edge of the bed. "No," she answered too quickly. "Mom is always gone. I am used to it." Her words cut deep. Not because of me, but because a 10-year-old girl had learned to accept abandonment. "Emma," I asked softly, "how often does your mother travel? Once a month?" "Sometimes more. She says it is work, but what?" Emma lowered her head. "I am not allowed to say." "Mom says family matters stay in the family." I stood up, about to leave, but before I reached the door, I turned back. "Emma, would you like to learn how to make the pecan cookies you loved when you were little? I still have your great-grandmother's recipe." Her eyes lit up for a moment, then dimmed again. "Mom says your kitchen is dirty." "Your mother says many things," I replied. "Why do not you find out for yourself tomorrow?" I closed the door gently, leaving Emma alone with her first independent thoughts. The first seed had been planted, but the night was not over. When I returned to my room, my phone vibrated. A message from an unknown number. "You will regret this if you continue. Vanessa has powerful friends." "Stop now, old woman." I stared at the screen. My heart beat faster, not from fear, from a clean, clear anger. Someone was watching me. Someone was protecting Vanessa through threats. I saved the message, my second piece of evidence. Then I whispered to myself, "They can threaten me, but they cannot threaten my love for my grandchildren." I turned off the light and lay down, but I did not sleep. I thought about Richard. I thought about Ethan. And I thought about the 3 children sleeping in my house. Children Vanessa believed she could use to control me. She was wrong. Tomorrow I would begin to change things. Not with force, not with arguments, but with what I do best: teaching, loving, and patience. And Vanessa would soon realize something. A grandmother who has waited too long to stand up is the most dangerous opponent she will ever face. I closed my eyes. I smiled in the darkness. The real battle had begun, and this time I would not lose. The second day began with a strangely quiet sunrise, but I knew it was only the calm before the storm. I woke up very early. I made a strong cup of black coffee as always. Then I sat at the dining table and looked at the 3 children still asleep after a chaotic night. Jackson, Emma, Tyler, the children Vanessa believed she could use as weapons to control me. I was not angry at them. They were victims. But I knew that if I did not act now, they would be trapped in that cycle of lies forever. I decided to begin with the closest thing: Jackson's phone. He had fallen asleep without Wi-Fi last night, so I knew he had charged it and left it in airplane mode. I quietly took it. I unlocked it using the simple passcode he had revealed without noticing the night before, and then I saw it. Not just a few messages, but an entire cloud archive, the kind children use these days. WhatsApp conversations between Vanessa and a man named Dominic. My heart almost stopped when I read the first lines. I am almost done. Michael signed the papers without reading them, as always. The house is now in my name. Dominic replied, "What about the kids? I will leave them with the old woman as soon as he signs the divorce papers. Michael works all day anyway. He will not win custody. But we need more money to move fully to Miami." Vanessa wrote, "The old woman has a house worth at least $200,000. When she dies, Michael inherits it. As his wife, I get half, or all if we are clever. We will find a way to take everything." My hands trembled as I kept scrolling. They had planned everything in detail. Vanessa used her business trips to meet Dominic in Cancun, Puerto Vallarta, Playa del Carmen, all paid with the money Ethan earned through hard work. They had even sold Ethan's car and claimed it was stolen, opened credit cards in his name, tried to mortgage my house without my signature. But what made my blood turn cold was the final message. When everything is done, we will take the kids to Miami. The law in the United States will not act fast there. They will forget their father in 2 months. I took screenshots of everything, every message, every image, every piece of evidence. This was not just an affair. This was an organized scheme. Divorce, property seizure, international child abduction under Ohio law. I had just put the phone away when Emma walked out of her room. Her eyes were still red from crying. She handed me a tiny USB drive, her voice trembling. "Grandma, I copied this from Mom's phone. I do not know why, but I think you need to see it." I plugged the USB into my old computer. What appeared made me sit down in shock. It was a detailed plan, numbered from Phase 1 to Phase 5. Phase 1, convince Michael to approve the training trip to Miami. Phase 2, while he is away, Dominic removes all valuable items from the house. Phase 3, after returning, start a conflict with the old woman. Make it look like she mistreats the children. Phase 4, use that as justification to leave with the children for safety. Phase 5, move to Miami. No return. And worst of all, there was an audio file. Vanessa's voice was clear. "I do not care if the kids cry for their father. They will forget in 2 months. Michael is pathetic. He will not fight. And if he does, I have edited videos to make it look like he hit Aiden. Technology works miracles, my friend." I sat there. Tears fell quietly. Not for myself, but for Ethan, my son, a good man being framed as an abuser. For my grandchildren being called obstacles by their own mother. For a woman who used her own children as pieces in a dishonest game. At that moment, the phone rang. Vanessa was calling. Video call. I answered, my face calm as if I knew nothing. "Lauren, I just want to check on the kids," she said, her voice sweet and artificial. But when she saw me, calm, not afraid, not begging, her expression changed instantly, twisted with anger. "You think you are smart. You will pay when Child Protective Services arrives. I already filed a report. You will lose everything. The house, the children, everything." I simply smiled and replied, "Thank you for the reminder, Vanessa. I am preparing very carefully." She ended the call. But I knew she was panicking. And I knew something else. The game had changed. That afternoon, Harlan came to my door. My neighbor. A 72-year-old retired police officer. A man I had known for more than 20 years. He carried a small box, Lauren Sarah told me. "I came to help install a camera in your backyard. No one will notice." He sat down, his voice low but serious. "I have seen Vanessa leave those 3 children with neighbors for a week at a time just to go on business trips. I do not like interfering in other people's lives, but those children deserve protection." I held his hand, my voice trembling with emotion. "Thank you. You do not know what this means to me." He nodded. "I do know. In this country, we do not let the wrong people win. We stand up, and I will stand with you." After he left, I sat alone in the living room. I looked at the evidence on the table, messages, the USB drive, videos, Harlan's testimony. This was no longer just my fight. This was a fight for the truth. I looked out the window. The Ohio sunlight was fading. I thought of Richard. I thought of Ethan. And I thought of the 3 children sleeping in my house. "My dear children," I whispered, "I will not let your mother take you away. I will bring you back into the light." And this time the ticking bomb had been set. Vanessa did not know that in just a few days everything she had built on lies would collapse, brick by brick. As for me, I was ready to face the storm. I knew by the 6th day that it was time to bring Ethan into this. I could not delay any longer. The evidence in my hands, the messages, the USB drive, the audio files, and Mr. Harlan's testimony was not only a weapon against Vanessa, it was also the key to saving my own son from a marriage that had become a prison he did not even recognize. I called Ethan in the afternoon while the children were doing their homework in the living room under my quiet supervision. His voice sounded tired through the phone as always. "Mom, what is it? Are the kids okay, Ethan? Can you come to my house after work? There is something important I need to tell you." "It is about Vanessa and the children." He was silent for a moment. I heard that familiar sigh, the sigh of a man who had learned to avoid conflict. "Mom, I am really busy. Vanessa told me not to disturb her during her business trip." "This is not about disturbing her," I interrupted, calm but firm. "This is about your future and your children's future. If you do not come, I will have to do this alone, and you will regret it for the rest of your life." He arrived at 7:15. He was still wearing his engineer uniform stained with grease. His eyes were dark from exhaustion. When he walked in, he saw me sitting at the dining table. A thick file lay in front of me. Jackson, Emma, and Tyler were in the next room, but they stopped when they heard his voice. "Hi, Mom," Ethan said, his voice rough. "Where are the kids? They are fine. But before you see them, I need you to sit down and look at this." I pushed the file toward him. Ethan opened it. He turned page after page. His face slowly lost all color. The messages between Vanessa and Dominic. The plan from phase 1 to phase 5. The audio file where Vanessa called the children obstacles. The edited video that framed him as abusive. The credit card statements opened in his name without his knowledge. Ethan collapsed into the chair. His hands trembled. He did not cry. He did not shout. He only whispered, his voice broken. "Mom, this must be a mistake. Vanessa is at a sales conference." "Ethan," I said, softly placing my hand on his shoulder. "Vanessa is in Miami with her lover. She is planning a divorce, taking the house and taking the children away without telling you. The children have known for a long time. They were told to stay silent or you would die from sadness." Ethan looked up at me. His eyes were red. "The kids knew," I nodded. "They knew, and they are afraid. But they need their father, their real father, not the one being manipulated." At that moment, Jackson appeared at the doorway. He had heard everything. "Dad." Ethan turned. For the first time in years, he truly saw his son. Not through Vanessa's lens, but with the eyes of a father. "Jackson, my son." Jackson ran forward and held him tightly. Emma and Tyler followed. All 3 children rushed into Ethan's arms, crying. Ethan held them. Tears rolled down his tired face. "I am sorry. I am so sorry. I did not know. I did not know anything." I stood there, tears falling down my own face. Not from pain, but from relief. For the first time, my real family was coming back together, even if only in this moment. After the children calmed down, Ethan sat beside me again. He continued reading the file. Then suddenly he stopped at one page. His face turned pale. "Mom, this $38,000. A credit card in my name. I never signed this. Vanessa said it was stolen, but I never filed a report." I placed my hand over his. "That is financial fraud, Ethan. Under Ohio law, she can be prosecuted. But what matters most right now are the children. We must protect them first." Ethan nodded. His voice trembled, but it was steady. "I will not let her hurt them again. Never." We began that very night. I called it the Respect Project. Not to punish, but to rebuild what had been broken. First, a clear daily schedule. Wake up at 7, breakfast at 8, morning study time, lunch, Free time earned through good behavior. Dinner, bed at 9. Emma protested first. At home, I can sleep whenever I want. That is why you feel tired and irritable, I said. The brain needs structure to feel safe. I taught your father this way. Now I will teach you. Next came responsibility. Jackson helped in the garden. Emma helped in the kitchen. Tyler organized his toys. Jackson muttered, "This is child labor." Ethan spoke up for the first time. "No, son. This is family. In a family, everyone contributes. And most important of all, family therapy." I contacted Dr. Emily Reynolds, a psychologist who specializes in children affected by parental alienation. She agreed to come to the house 3 times a week. In the first session, she told us these children have been used as pieces in a harmful game. Their mother conditioned them to reject all authority except hers. Yet she is often absent. This is a classic case of parental alienation combined with emotional neglect. It can be reversed, but it requires time, patience, and a great deal of love. Ethan held his children's hands. His voice broke. "I am here now. I am not going anywhere." I looked at them, my son holding his children, tears falling, and I knew this was only the beginning. But it was the most important step, because in this country we do not wait for miracles. We act, we face the truth, and we protect the people we love by every legal means with all the strength that truth can give. Vanessa thought she could control everything. She was wrong. My family was waking up, and this time we would not fall asleep again. The following days passed like a whirlwind. They were tense yet beautiful, painful yet full of hope. We had only 5 days left before Vanessa returned from Miami, and I knew these would be the decisive days. There was no turning back, no room for hesitation. We had to prepare for the final battle, not with fists, but with truth, with the law, and with a kind of love that Vanessa had never understood. On the morning of the 10th day, I brought the 3 children to Sarah Klein's house. Sarah, the friend who had given me the tiny recording devices and hidden cameras, welcomed them with a warm smile. "Just relax and play here," she said. "Your grandmother and your father are taking care of everything. You only need to remember this. You are loved, and no one can take you away from your real family." Jackson, Emma, and Tyler looked at me with eyes full of worry but also trust. I hugged each of them. "I will call you back soon," I whispered. "Be good, and remember I am always here." When Sarah's car disappeared down the street, I returned home. Ethan had taken leave. For the first time in 3 years of constant work, he was sitting at the dining table with Attorney Thompson, a man in his 50s, specializing in parental alienation cases in Ohio. His eyes were sharp. His voice was steady like stone. "We have everything, mister," Thompson said, spreading the documents across the table. The messages, the audio files, the fake video, the financial fraud records, the neighbor's testimony. CPS has already opened a preliminary case based on Emily Reynolds' report. I have prepared an emergency temporary custody request for Ethan, along with a restraining order against Vanessa regarding the children during the legal process. If she causes trouble, the police will be at the corner immediately. I have coordinated with them. Ethan nodded, but his hands were still shaking. "I just want my children to be safe," he said quietly. "I do not want her to go to prison, but I cannot let her keep hurting them." "Mister," Thompson placed a hand on his shoulder. "Ethan, under Ohio law, we can negotiate. She gives up custody, returns the money, and avoids criminal charges. But if she refuses, the court will consider parental kidnapping and financial fraud. We have a strong advantage." While Ethan and the lawyer worked through the paperwork, I focused on the final stage of the Respect Project before Vanessa returned. We held a special family therapy session with Dr. Emily Reynolds. She asked each of us to write a letter to Vanessa, not to send, just to release what had been weighing on our hearts. Jackson wrote 3 pages filled with anger, about being called obstacles, about being forced to stay silent about Dominic. Emma wrote 1 page full of questions. "Why do you not love me the way you say you do?" Tyler could not write much. He drew a picture instead. Our family holding hands in front of the house. Vanessa was not in the drawing. At the top, he wrote in uneven letters, "Real family." Ethan wrote only 1 line, "I forgive you, but I will not let you hurt the children again." I wrote, I failed as a mother-in-law because I did not stop you sooner. I will not fail as a grandmother. After that, we went out to the backyard. Under the gentle Ohio afternoon sun, we burned the letters in a clay bowl. As the paper turned to ash, Tyler looked up and asked, "Are we free now?" Dr. Reynolds smiled softly. "Now you are beginning to be free, and real freedom is not having no rules. It is living in truth and love." But that same evening, while I was cleaning the kitchen, my phone vibrated. An unknown number. I answered. A man's voice. Low, distorted. "If Vanessa cannot take the children, you will lose everything. Your house, your money, even your life. Stop now, old woman. This is your final warning." My heart pounded. Not from fear of death, but from anger. Clear and fierce. I said nothing. I recorded the call using my phone, then hung up. I immediately called the local Columbus police. The officer on duty listened, then spoke seriously. "Mrs. Smith, this is a direct threat. We will open a case, trace the number, and increase patrols around your home." "Do you have any other evidence?" "I do," I said, "and I will send everything." After the call, I sat down on the kitchen floor, my back against the refrigerator. I thought about Richard, the man who left too soon, leaving me alone with Ethan. I thought about Ethan, my son manipulated until he forgot his own worth. And I thought about the 3 children. Children who should have been loved without condition, not used as pieces in Vanessa's game. Tears fell down my face. Not from weakness, but from realization. I was no longer alone. I had Ethan beside me. I had Sarah, Mr. Harlan, Emily Reynolds, Attorney Thompson, and the police. I had the truth. The strongest weapon no one could take away. The final 5 days were no longer about waiting. They were about building protection, helping the children learn to trust, helping Ethan learn to stand up, and making Vanessa understand one thing. This time she was not facing a lonely old woman. She was facing a family that had awakened, a family that stood together, a family ready to fight until the end. I stood up, wiped my tears, and whispered to myself, "Vanessa, your greatest mistake was believing that love can be bought, controlled, or threatened. Because real love, the love of a grandmother, a mother, a father, never surrenders." And in 5 days, she would face the consequences of everything she had done. I turned off the kitchen light, but inside me the light burned bright. The final battle was near, and this time we would win. The 14th day came faster than I expected. It was a Saturday morning in Columbus. The sky was clear. Soft sunlight streamed through the living room window, the same window where I had sat hundreds of times looking out, waiting for those rare moments when I could see my grandchildren. But today was not a day of waiting. Today was the day of confrontation. Ethan and I sat in the living room from 11 o'clock. Beside us was Mr. Thompson, our lawyer, with a thick file on the coffee table like soldiers ready for battle. My phone vibrated softly. A message from Sarah. "The kids are fine. They are playing in my yard. They suspect nothing. Good luck, Lauren." At 12:03, the familiar sound of an SUV engine echoed outside the gate. My heart pounded, not from fear, but from the rhythm of someone who had waited too long to stand up. Ethan held my hand. "Mom, she has no power over us anymore." The door opened without a knock. Just like Vanessa, she walked in glowing with a Miami tan, wearing a new white dress, pulling a Louis Vuitton suitcase behind her. She looked around, her voice sharp. "It is so hot. Michael, what are you doing here? You should be at work. Where are the kids? I hope your mother has not spoiled them, Lauren. It is already hard enough for me." Then she stopped. She saw Mr. Thompson. She saw Ethan standing, no longer the tired, submissive man he used to be. And she saw me, not the weak old woman she once knew, but someone ready. "Who is this?" Vanessa asked. Her voice began to shake. Ethan stood straight. "We need to talk, Vanessa. Talk about what I am tired. I am taking the kids home now." "The kids are not here," I said calmly. "And they are not going anywhere with you." Her face changed. The sweet mask cracked. She forced a laugh. "Michael, honey, what did your mother tell you now? She is old. She makes things up." Ethan did not smile. He took out his phone and pressed play. Vanessa's voice filled the room. "The kids are obstacles. I will get rid of them as soon as I can. Michael is so stupid he will never notice. All the color drained from her face. She stepped back. That is edited. Recording someone without consent is illegal, Mr. Thompson spoke, his voice cold and precise. Opening a credit card in your husband's name without consent is also illegal. $38,000 in debt. Financial fraud under Ohio law and attempted international parental kidnapping is far more serious. Vanessa staggered and grabbed the back of the sofa. You cannot do this to me. I have rights. The children have rights too, I said. The right not to be manipulated, not to be used, not to be emotionally abandoned. She turned to Ethan. Michael, you cannot believe this. This is your mother's scheme. Ethan shook his head. His eyes were red but steady. I have heard enough, Vanessa. I have seen enough. The children know everything. They know about Dominic. They know you called them obstacles. They know you planned to take them to Miami. The living room door burst open. Emma stood there. She had slipped away from Sarah's house. Jackson and Tyler were behind her. Sarah rushed in after them, breathless. I am sorry. They slipped out when I was not looking. Vanessa ran forward. My babies, Emma, Jackson, Tyler, come to me. Emma stepped back. Then she shouted, for the first time in years, Do not touch me. Vanessa froze. Tyler stepped forward. His voice was small but clear. You are not a real mom. Jackson stood beside him. You do not love us. You only use us. The three children stood together, holding hands, facing the woman who gave birth to them. Vanessa stared at them, eyes wide with shock. Then Dominic, the man from the messages, walked in through the back door. She had called him for support. But when he saw the scene, his face went pale. Vanessa turned to him. Dominic, say something. You are a lawyer. He shook his head. I did not know you recorded everything. I do not want to go to prison. You are on your own. He turned and walked away. Vanessa screamed after him. You cannot leave me. You promised we would be together, but he was gone. She turned back to us, to Ethan, to me, to the children, to Mr. Thompson. Then she collapsed onto the sofa. For the first time, the mask was gone. Mr. Thompson opened his briefcase and pushed a document toward her. You have two options under Ohio law. First, sign this agreement. Give up custody. Return the $38,000. No criminal charges will be filed. Second, go to court. With our evidence, messages, audio, fake videos, CPS reports, you will lose everything. Custody, freedom, and you may face prison for parental kidnapping and financial fraud. Vanessa stared at the paper. Her hands trembled. She looked at her children one last time. For a moment, it seemed like she might cry. Then she grabbed the pen. She signed quickly and threw the paper back on the table. I hope you are all satisfied, she hissed. You just took a mother away from her children. Tyler stepped forward. No, we just got a family. Vanessa stood up and rushed toward him as if to hug him. But Tyler moved away and hid behind Ethan. He looked straight into her eyes. You are not a real mom. Vanessa froze again. She looked at the three children, the children she thought she could control forever. Then she turned and walked out. This time she did not slam the door. She left in silence. A silence heavier than any scream. The door closed. The sound of the SUV faded away. And in the living room, Ethan and the three children held each other and cried, not from pain, but from release. I stood there, tears streaming down my face. Not because of victory, but because at last my real family had come back together. Ethan looked at me. Mom, thank you. Without you, I would have lost everything. I held him and the children. It was not just me, I whispered. We did this, together. And in that moment, I knew Vanessa had lost. Not because we were stronger, but because we had something she never had. Real love. Love that cannot be bought, cannot be controlled, cannot be threatened. Love that stands firm against every lie. And today, love won. 3 weeks after Vanessa signed the agreement and left my house, life began to return to the peaceful rhythm I had once dreamed of. Every morning I woke up to the sound of my grandchildren's laughter echoing from the backyard. Ethan had been promoted to production manager. Now he came home on time, no longer carrying that exhausted, worn-out look. Jackson made the honor roll. Emma joined the school volleyball team, and Tyler fell in love with my old piano. Lauren's art house, my small art class, also started to fill with neighborhood kids. Everything seemed to be healing piece by piece. I thought the storm had passed. I was wrong. That Thursday afternoon, I was in the backyard with the children, teaching them how to plant tomatoes just like my mother had taught me. Jackson laughed loudly, his hands covered in soil. Emma was talking excitedly about her last volleyball match. Tyler was humming a song he had learned at school. It was peaceful, until the doorbell rang. Not the usual gentle chime, but loud, urgent, repeated knocking. I wiped my hands on my apron and walked to the door, and my heart skipped a beat. Vanessa stood there, not the defeated woman from 3 weeks ago. She was dressed in business attire, hair perfectly styled, a stack of printed documents in her hand. Beside her stood a strange man, likely a hired witness, and next to him a young woman holding a case file. "I am Patricia from Child Protective Services," she said, her tone stiff. "We received a report of child abuse and neglect involving you. We have a court order for an emergency inspection." Vanessa smiled coldly and raised the papers. "I have a legal court order. You have manipulated the children. Michael is an alcoholic and abusive, and you are covering for him. I want to see my children immediately." I stood still, not panicked. I had been waiting for this moment. "Please come in," I said calmly. "Inspect anything you want." But before Patricia could step inside, Ethan appeared from the hallway. Behind him were Mr. Harlan, my retired police officer neighbor, and Emily Reynolds from CPS. Patricia Emily greeted her colleague, her voice calm but firm. "I received the report as well. This family has been under my supervision for 3 weeks. I have a complete file." Vanessa let out a sharp laugh. "Your file is worthless. I have a witness. He will confirm that Lauren Miller abused the children." The strange man stepped forward, beginning to recite rehearsed lies. But Mr. Harlan stepped in, his voice steady and strong. "I am the real witness. I installed backyard cameras at Mrs. Smith's request. And I have personally seen Vanessa leave these children with neighbors for an entire week, just to go on so-called business trips. This is real footage." He held out his phone. The video played clearly. Vanessa rushing away. No hug, no goodbye. Patricia's face turned serious. Emily stepped forward. "I have psychological evaluations of the children, therapy reports, evidence of emotional manipulation, and documentation of a planned child abduction. Vanessa is guilty of the very things she is accusing others of." Vanessa began to lose control. She turned toward Dominic, who had just appeared from a car, trying to stay behind her, and shouted, "Say something, you are a lawyer." Dominic shook his head, his voice trembling. I do not want to be involved anymore," Vanessa snapped. She slapped him hard across the face right in front of the children. The sound echoed sharply. Jackson, Emma, and Tyler froze their eyes wide with shock. Patricia and Emily exchanged a glance. Patricia closed her case file, her voice cold and decisive. "I have seen enough. There is no evidence of abuse by Lauren Smith or Ethan Carter. On the contrary, there is clear evidence of false reporting and manipulation by Vanessa Carter. I will recommend supervised visitation only and continued therapy for the children." Vanessa spun around her face, twisted with rage and desperation. "You cannot do this. I am their mother." Tyler, only 7 years old, stepped forward. His voice was small, but clear. "You are not a real mother." Silence fell over the garden. Vanessa stared at her youngest son, then at Jackson, at Emma. None of them moved toward her. They stood behind Ethan, holding on to each other. Vanessa stepped back, her hands trembling. She looked at me one last time, her eyes filled with hatred. You will pay for this." But this time there was no real threat left. She turned, walked out the gate. No slammed door, no screaming. She left alone. No Dominic, no children, nothing she had tried to take. The sound of the SUV faded into the distance. And in the garden we stood there. Ethan held the 3 children tightly, tears running down his face. I stood beside them, my hand resting gently on their shoulders. "Are you okay?" I whispered. Jackson nodded, his voice hoarse. "We are okay now, Grandma," Emma cried, but from relief. "I am not scared anymore." Tyler hugged me tightly. "You are my real mom." I held them close. Tears fell. Not from victory, but from freedom. Freedom from lies. Freedom from manipulation. Freedom to love without fear. Vanessa had made her final move. and she had failed completely. Not because we were stronger, but because we had something she never did. A real family, where love is not a weapon, but a foundation. And from that day on, we began to rewrite our story. No more darkness, only light. The light of a grandmother who stood up, the light of a father who awakened, and the light of 3 children who were finally loved the right way. That was a lesson I had never taught in 35 years of teaching, but now I finally had. Through my own life, 6 months passed since the day Vanessa left my house in complete defeat. 6 months, not long compared to the 68 years I have lived, but long enough to change everything. The divorce was finalized on a spring afternoon in Columbus. The Ohio Family Court did not need a long trial. The evidence was too clear. Vanessa had nothing left to argue. She gave up custody, agreed to repay $38,000 in financial fraud, and accepted an indefinite no-contact order with the children unless supervised by the court. Ethan let out a long breath when he signed the final document. He looked at me, his eyes red, and said, "Mom, I never thought I could get out. Thank you." I just held him. No words were needed. We had done it. Soon after, Ethan was promoted to production manager. His salary increased. His work hours dropped to 8 hours a day. He came home on time, cooked dinner with the children. And for the first time in years, he truly smiled. A real smile. Not forced, not hiding exhaustion. The debts Vanessa left behind were paid off within 6 months. He told me, "I want my kids to grow up without worrying about money. I want them to know that family is a safe place." And me, I opened Lauren's art house, a small class right in my backyard. At first, just a few neighborhood kids came. They learned to draw, make crafts, and cook the traditional American dishes my mother once taught me: apple pie, southern fried chicken, warm spicy chili. I charged a modest fee, $20 per session, but the real reward was never the money. It was the laughter filling the open-air classroom, the messy drawings covering the walls, the hugs from children whose names I did not even know before. Jackson made the school honor roll. Now he proudly showed me his grades every evening. Emma became a key player on the girls' volleyball team. Tall, strong, always the first to run into my arms after a win. Tyler discovered his love for music. My old piano, the one I bought with tutoring money back in the 1980s, now played every day. Simple, clear melodies filled the living room, a quiet reminder that life still held so much beauty. Then Mother's Day came, a day I had never expected much from. That morning, the children woke me up with breakfast in bed, heart-shaped pancakes, coffee, and a bouquet of wildflowers from the garden. They shouted, "Happy Mother's Day, Mama Lauren." I laughed, tears running down my face. "I am your grandmother, my loves." Ethan stood at the door smiling. "Not just a grandmother. You are the mother we needed, and the kids want to make sure you know that." They handed me an envelope. Inside were legal documents. A request for the court to recognize me as the children's backup legal guardian in case anything ever happened to Ethan. "We want to be with you if that day comes," Jackson said firmly. "Because you are our real family." I cried. Not from sadness, but from happiness. Deep, complete happiness. The kind I never dared to dream of. That afternoon, Ethan led the children into the backyard. He had built a small wooden classroom, a shaded roof, neat little desks, a large artboard. "This is my gift to you, Mom," he said. "You saved us. Now we want you to keep saving other children." I held him tightly. No words, just tears and smiles. That night, after the children went to bed, I sat alone in the garden. The full moon lit up the tomato rows now heavy with red fruit. I sat on the old wooden chair and thought about Richard. "My love," I whispered into the Ohio night air. I did it. I raised Ethan into a good man, and now I am raising our grandchildren. Not by blood, but by love. I hope you are proud. I thought about Vanessa, now working as a caregiver in another state, earning $20 an hour. I did not hate her. I felt pity. Because to live a whole life without knowing real love, without knowing real happiness, that is the heaviest punishment of all. And I thought about myself. A retired teacher once seen as no longer useful. I smiled. I had never done more, never been more useful, never been more happy. Family is not blood. Family is where we choose to love, protect, and respect one another. In this country, we do not wait for miracles. We stand up. We take back what is ours. And we rebuild from the ashes. It is never too late to do that. If this story touched your heart, if it reminded you that real love is always stronger than lies, that a grandmother, a mother, a father can change an entire destiny, then share it. Let others know where you are listening from what small corner of this country. Because sometimes the people who seem to do nothing are the ones holding the world together. And remember, respect is not begged for, it is earned. And when someone refuses to give it, it is time to take it back. With truth, with love, and with everything you have. Thank you for listening to my story. This is Lauren Smith from Columbus, Ohio, and this is the story of how a family found its way back to the light. If you want to hear more real-life stories where love finds a way to win, please subscribe. We still have many stories to share. I wish you a peaceful day. And if you are fighting for your family, remember, you are not alone, and it is never too late. Goodbye.